Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio. Dave and Dujanovic, special coverage of the top national story.
I could not believe that this story was unfolding yesterday, and I could not even believe that this had actually happened, Dave. It's what you and I have been talking about all morning long, and the media, nationally and locally, has been talking about for the last, 24 hours. That Atlantic.com journalist, that online news magazine, one of the top journalists there, the editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, says that in early March, he was accidentally added to a group chat that included very high-level top U.S. intelligence officials.
By the way, this is every journalist's dream, is to literally be invited to be the fly on the wall in top secret, meetings. But this was a complete and total accident. And Debbie, as somebody that has had a security clearance, your experience and your shock is probably far more detailed and in-depth than mine. But I can tell you this, putting the wrong name or texting the wrong message to somebody or an email, I did that twice last week. Like, this is something that happens all the time. I didn't expect it to happen when you're planning attacks on a foreign country.
Two things came to my mind when I read this article. Sloppy. This is sloppy on the part of very top officials that have sworn to protect our deepest and most delicate secrets. And the other thing I felt was this is amateur hour, that they had somebody had accidentally added this reporter to this group text on this app, this commercially available app. That's another layer that came to my mind too, is like they're just using some app you can download from the App Store that, by the way, I have used in the past on my phone to communicate military operations. Let's listen to what Jeffrey Goldberg, who is the editor-in-chief for The Atlantic, who's the one that was added to that group chat, said on PBS.
I have never in my life seen a commercial messaging app used to discuss whether and when and how to attack another country.
I'm just so shocked. I'm trying to wrap my head around this. Like, how does it happen? There's so many questions I have, but how in the world is this app being used? And again, this wasn't just between two friends. This was a who's who of the intelligence and military operations of this country.
Yeah, we're talking like the Secretary of State was on this group chat, according to Goldberg's reporting. Vice President J.D. Vance was on it. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. He also said that there was a user by the initials TG, who he believed to be the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. CIA Director, he believed to be on that group chat as well. I want to listen.
Can I jump in on just, as you were giving the list of names, as you're talking about Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, J.D. Vance, all served in the military. Front line, right? I mean, they've served in the military. Like, they should understand this on a level that most people don't. Like, operational security is at its core.
I want to set aside the Signal app for just a moment. We're going to get more into that in just a few minutes with a former FBI supervisor, Karl Schmae, who's waiting on the line right now. We're going to talk to him more about why this app should never be used to share military operation information. But I want to listen more to what the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic told PBS NewsHour about how this unfolded so we can get a deeper understanding. Like, how did he get added to this group chat? It seemed in the beginning to him to be kind of maybe randomly added by somebody within the Trump administration's national intelligence circle.
I was invited a couple of weeks ago to connect with Michael Waltz, the national security advisor. That didn't strike me as particularly strange, given my job and his job. A little while later, I'm added to a group chat. That seemed strange. I kind of just ignored it a little bit. And then, it really became a very bizarre situation on Saturday, the 15th of March, when I was shared on a text in this group from somebody purporting to be Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense. And this text contained operational military information, including the time that bombs were supposed to start dropping on Yemen. And this was 2 hours before that time. So I simply waited and stared at my phone. And sure enough, the American attack on Yemen began to be felt at about 1:30 Eastern or so, 1:50 Eastern. And that's when I realized that the chain was real. Until that point, I really had a deep suspicion that I was being spoofed or hoaxed or being led astray on a disinformation campaign, the rationale for which I can't figure out. But this all seems so improbable that I simply assumed that it couldn't be.
Yeah.
I would have assumed the same thing.
Yeah,
There's no way I got added to this top secret, behind the scenes, war plan text thread. This never happens. So that's what is so strange. And the fact that he was added by Michael Waltz, the national security advisor, into this Signal app, that, again, so strange on so many levels.
So you were saying earlier when we first started talking about this, you're like, I've done this before. I've accidentally messaged somebody or included somebody in the group chat that, wasn't supposed to be in the group chat. I think we can all relate to that at some level. But at some point, don't you look at that text chain of phone numbers and be like, who's 602-711-555? What number is that? Who am I chatting with and who is involved in this who I don't recognize? And that's where it's weird to me, is that between March 11th, when he is accidentally added to this group chat, and then March 15th, when the United States military executed bombings in Yemen, somebody didn't notice, hey, who's Jeff Goldberg?
Who's JG?
Yeah. Does anybody know this guy? What military operation is he involved with? Nobody on this, it was more than a dozen high-level U.S. government officials who were on this group chat. Nobody's like, who's JG?
And kind of like our own Teams calls, we see names and numbers that don't really describe who this person is. And in this group chat, apparently there were CIA officers. So are you looking at that and thinking, oh, well, that's the undercover guy. Let's not ask who JG is. Nobody's asking the question. But a couple things that stood out to me, again, as I'm reading through these text messages that he was sharing, they text a lot like we do. They're sending emojis, thumbs up, flexing, prayer emojis. This is just regular people that are texting the way that you and I would text. The difference here is the gravity of what is happening, what they are talking about, the national security, the breach in national security. This is what changes the entire game. It's one thing if we're just, oh, sorry, wrong person, I pocket dialed you, my bad, and then when you're talking about operational, and what was great about this editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeff Goldberg, he had information and details about weapons being used, target packages, direct strikes, when they would hit. He didn't give any of that information out.
He didn't publish it.
He saw it. He had access to it, but he didn't publish any of this.
And those bombings were on March 15th. The story published yesterday, March 24th. So you're right. He sat on that. And in fact, he was sitting in a parking lot, he said, at a grocery store as he was seeing in real time these messages drop in on this app Signal, which is a commercially available app. And he was like, this looks like it could be a real thing, but he wasn't 100%. And then he double-checked other media platforms and found out that the bombings were actually happening. And he actually, so here's what we're talking about right now. If you're just joining us, this article in The Atlantic at theatlantic.com, where the editor-in-chief was texted what he called wartime plans, because he'd been accidentally added to a group chat several days earlier that involved top-level intelligence officials in the United States. The article's entitled, "The Trump Administration Accidentally Texted Me Its War Plans." And then bombs started falling. Karl Schmae, former supervisor with the FBI, you worked in some of the most top secret cases, Karl, in the FBI. What is your initial reaction to inadvertently, I guess, top military or top intelligence officials in the United States leaking war plans to a reporter?
Hey, good morning, guys. I was totally shocked. This is sloppy is probably the nicest word we can use. I mean, this was a major screw up. And Dave, as you pointed out, these guys are all high-level guys, many of them with military or intelligence backgrounds, and they know better. And so that's even more so what makes this shocking. There's a reason why we have all these special procedures for handling classified information, and we don't use Signal for classified. It's okay for average people to use it, but not for our leaders. And I can talk a little bit about why that is if you guys are interested.
Please, that's exactly, yeah. Why do they use it? Or why should they not?
Yeah, so look, for an average person, let's say somebody who's working for a company and they want to be a whistleblower, using Signal's encrypted, which makes it difficult for people to read those messages. And so that's fine for someone like that. But for a U.S. leader to be using Signal, the reason we wouldn't want them to use it is, one, cell phones are insecure. We have adversaries that have very sophisticated capabilities to hack into our cell phones where you wouldn't even know it. That means they can read everything that's on that cell phone. So even though maybe the Signal message is secure in transit, once it hits that cell phone, if it's compromised, they can see everything. Every Signal message, every text message, every email, everything. I worked in a SCIF, which is a sensitive compartmented information facility. That's where we handled our top secret information when I was in the FBI. We couldn't bring cell phones in there, which was inconvenient, but it's because we knew cell phones were insecure. We had to go inside the special office, the SCIF, and use our classified computers and special classified phones, which these leaders have access to as well. But, they got very complacent.
Karl, the reporter said this on PBS NewsHour.
According to everything I understand, they're not supposed to be doing this on commercial messaging apps. They got quite lucky that they included my phone number if they're going to pick an errant phone number, I mean, at least it wasn't somebody who supported the Houthis, because they were actually handing out information that I believe could have endangered the lives of American service people who were involved in that operation.
And Karl, that is the other angle to the fact that they're using this Signal app that's available at the App Store, a commercially available app, is that they are doggone lucky that they added a reporter who, didn't publish the information. I mean, had the wherewithal and the professionalism not to publish the information he was getting in real time, but also that they didn't add, some random source who, could have leaked this information on a military operation that was still several hours out.
Yeah, we don't want to be depending on for our operational security. As you guys pointed out, we're very lucky that this journalist was a stand-up guy. He's a patriot, and he didn't disclose it. Because the impact is, if we'd had, say, somebody who wasn't as trustworthy as that guy, they could have leaked that information to the Houthis, which means a couple things. One, they could have gone into hiding, which means all our strikes would miss. Two, they could prep their air defenses and possibly try to shoot down U.S. aircraft. So we could have had lives lost and hundreds of millions of dollars wasted on missile shots. So, another reason why we use classified systems is you can't accidentally add in a reporter or somebody who's uncleared.
So the classified systems, they have access to that and they chose not to use them?
Yes. Those guys, they could have gone into the Situation Room, which is at the White House, which is obviously a very secure room. They also do have their own secure, at that level, those guys also have secure communication devices. They're a little bit inconvenient to use, in terms of setting stuff up. And so, this took place on a Saturday night. And I think guys got complacent. It's like it's easy to use your cell phone. We get used to using our cell phones for everything else. And they start texting each other, Dave, just like you said, just like normal people, right, with thumbs up and all the emojis. And they got carried away, and I think they lost sight of the importance of the information that they were conveying.
Yeah, Karl, I'm seeing one of these text messages at theatlantic.com on the article there. They have a screen grab of it. It's J.D. Vance, and he's tagging Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, saying, if you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again. Let's make sure our messaging is tight here. And if there are things we can do up front to minimize risk to Saudi oil facilities, we should do it. And then Hegseth chimes in back to the VP saying, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic. So, there's these internal conversations within the pending airstrike. And then the reporter withholds a lot of information about what those details entailed because obviously trying to spare putting U.S. war plans out publicly. But there's enough here to know that I think you said it. This is a screw up. It is beyond sloppy.
Yeah, I mean, this is the type of thing for anybody who's ever had a security clearance. If you did this, you're going to be in major trouble,
Karl,
right? There's going to be investigation. Yes?
Yeah, Karl, let me just tell you, it's exactly what I thought of last night as I was going to bed. If this was me with my security clearance or you with your security clearance when we worked together at the FBI, I wouldn't even need to be called back to the office. I would turn in all of my, my badges, my computer, my phone, and I would hire myself an attorney and pray I didn't get prosecuted and tossed in prison. That's what I was thinking last night as I was heading to bed about this situation.
Yeah, look, the U.S. government spends hundreds of millions of dollars to have developed secure communications to make sure that we don't get hacked by spies. And in this case, basically, we hacked ourselves. This was just a self-inflicted wound. And, it just shows why we have procedures. This is why we don't use cell phones for classified. Because I guarantee you, Signal is a major target right now of every intelligence agency out there in the world. If they haven't compromised it already, they're trying to. And we also know that our leaders are top targets of our adversaries, and they're always trying to hack their phones. There's been numerous reports, even from just recently, it's in the last few months, of cell phones attempted to be hacked. Their emails are trying to be hacked. So we have to be so careful. And our leaders in particular, we entrust them with our most precious secrets. Those secrets can save lives. In World War II, we had a saying, loose lips sink ships. And that saying came about because we wanted sailors to preserve operational security so our boats going across to Europe wouldn't get torpedoed by the German U-boats. If somebody got sloppy and said, hey, our boat's leaving tomorrow, that could get to the enemy, and they could use that to kill people. And that same saying, loose lips sink ships, that is accurate today. This is why we have operational security and why guys need to follow procedures.
Karl, thank you so much for joining us. I just popped in my mind, we got 15 seconds, but did the journalist have any obligation to disclose that he knew he wasn't supposed to be on this? Should he have disclosed anything?
I don't...
The responsibility is on the sharer of information. So if somebody gave it to him, really that responsibility is on the people that shared the information, and they should have been checking to see who was on that group. So we got lucky that Jeff Goldberg did the right thing, but we don't want to be relying on luck, because next time we might get a journalist who's not as friendly, and this could end up being really bad where lives are lost.
Karl, thank you so much for joining us. Karl Schmae, a former FBI special agent.
I want to also make it clear that he, as he said in the beginning, we heard him say that he wasn't sure if this was some sort of a hoax or a setup when he was initially added, that this could be some sort of a disinformation campaign targeted at journalists. So he wasn't quite sure what group chat he had been added to, and that he removed himself from the chat after that information.
After several days. Now, I'm not blaming the guy. I wonder. It's a fascinating story. We'll continue to watch it. We're watching Capitol Hill right now. Senators are questioning Tulsi Gabbard. Kash Patel. Everyone's being asked about this, so we will continue to follow this as it develops at Capitol Hill.